Have you ever noticed how easy it is to start carrying things that were never yours to carry? Not physical things, but emotional ones. Your adult child's choices, your husband's struggles, your coworker's problems, your friend's crisis. Somewhere along the way, many of us, especially as women, especially as moms, quietly pick up responsibility for things God never assigned to us. We carry worry that isn't ours, guilt that isn't ours, outcomes that were never ours to control. And before long, we're exhausted. Not because life is heavy, but because we're carrying the whole world. So today, I want to explore a simple but incredibly freeing question. What is actually mine to carry? And just as important, what is not? Hi, friends. Welcome to Taking Back Happy. I'm your host, Gina Granville, God's girl, retired homeschool mom of 4, empty nester, GG, essential oil and exercise enthusiast, Christian life coach, and someone who is taking back her own happy. I know many of you feel exactly like me in these midlife years, a sort of loss of direction, but you feel way too young and vibrant to sit on the porch and just watch life go by. What if you could reclaim your life, finding deep joy, renewed passion and purpose, and plenty of adventure in these midlife years? If you are ready to find your spark again, throw on those walking shoes, pop in those earbuds, and join me right here as we take back happy together. Hey friends, have you gotten your community on and joined the Taking Back Happy Facebook group? That is a great place to connect with other women who are also taking back their own happy. How about becoming a TBH Insider? When you become a TBH Insider, you get free weekly emails with the latest podcast, tips on creating a happy mindset, early bird access to special offers, and encouraging Bible devos. And if you're looking at working with me one-on-one, go ahead and sign up for the free 1-hour Taking Back Happy Mindset Coaching call. So let's ask that question. What is mine to carry? Let's look at this because I feel like as midlife women, we are like exhausted. Life is feeling so hard, but not necessarily because life's just hard, but literally because we're carrying things that we were never assigned to carry. Another way to ask that question might be, what am I carrying that God never asked me to carry? Okay, so let's break it down. My first point is my responsibility versus someone else's responsibility. The first question to ask is this actually my responsibility or am I trying to manage someone else's life? As moms especially, we get used to carrying everything. Schedules, emotions, consequences, outcomes. But eventually our role changes. Your adult child's choices and relationships and finances and spiritual decisions are not yours to carry anymore. My friend Aline is actually doing an entire course about this because it's so hard sometimes for us to switch from being a mom of young children to being a mom of adults without coming in like a bulldozer, stepping on people's toes, sticking our nose where it doesn't belong. And that's where that question came from. What is actually ours to carry? And I felt like it's such a great question, and I really wanted to do a deep dive on this. So if we think about it, I'm responsible for my own actions, my words, my boundaries, and my obedience to God. I am not responsible for other people's reactions, their choices, their like maturity or non-maturity, their consequences. Galatians 6:5 says, "For each one should carry their own load." When I first read this, I was thinking more like we should, we should do our part. Like we should not leave it to someone else. But I don't think that's really what it's saying because the Greek word here actually means like when you say their own load, it actually means like a personal backpack, like something that is assigned to a certain individual. Everybody has their own backpack. Which brings me to point number 2. Compassion is mine to carry, control is not. Ouch. That's pretty rough, isn't it? This is where many women get stuck. Sometimes we confuse love with control. And I think, like I said before, that's because we did that a lot when our kids were little. We would show love by, controlling them, keeping them safe from running in the street and things like that. But some examples of this might be trying to fix an adult child's mistakes, covering for your spouse's behavior or misbehavior, as the case may be. It could be over functioning at work, trying to do so much more than anybody else and trying to go the extra mile. It's not wrong to go the extra mile, but when you're over functioning, that could be a problem. Another thing could be managing everyone else's emotions. And that's a tough one not to fall into. But compassion doesn't mean taking over someone else's responsibility. I remember the first time we took my oldest son to college. And I had this whole big thing in my mind of what we were going to do. He was going to go to Liberty University. So we all went up there as a family and we moved him in and we spent the night and they had this family event and everything. And then the next day we had this meeting and we had all these things planned. We're like, oh, we're going to go do this. We're going to go do that. And we went to a meeting and it was a meeting for the parents. And the school was basically like, okay, you've done your thing. You've dropped them off. Now the best thing for them is for you just to leave. I mean, that's not exactly how they put it, but that's exactly what they meant. And so we were like, oh, okay. Like it was so hard for us to let go and let go of that control and let go of making those decisions for him and just all those things. And I remember we all got in the car to leave because we're like, okay, well, they're expecting us to go now. So it's time to go. And we all got in the car to leave. And it was just so hard for us as parents to let go of that. It felt like letting go of love, but I think it really was letting go of control. And I remember as we're driving away, my youngest son, he was pretty little still when my oldest son started college. There's 7 years between them. And I remember him crying. He was like, oh my gosh, we left Matthew there. And then that just made it all the more harder. So if you think about it, you can carry love, you can carry prayer, you can carry encouragement, but you cannot carry someone else's decisions, their growth, their consequences. Even God allows people to experience consequences. A lot of times that's the thing that brings them closer to Him. That's the thing that opens their eyes. Definitely, it's opened my eyes in the past to know God more and want a deeper relationship with Him when I go through a consequence that's not that great. In the Galatians, going back to chapter 6, Galatians 2 says, carry each other's burdens. But then again, if we look at that balance, when we were talking about Galatians 6:5, it said everyone still has to carry their own load. We said that the Greek word for that was backpack, like a personal backpack. But if you think about it, if I'm picturing it, I'm kind of picturing like a suitcase. And if we're helping someone occasionally carry their suitcase, say you're in an airport and they need help and you're helping them, well, that's kindness. You're just being kind. But if you're living your whole life and you're running around the airport and you're grabbing everybody's suitcase for them, that's control. So that's a good way to kind of look at it. Am I doing this occasionally to provide help that's really needed? Or am I stepping in all the time and trying to help? And I'm doing air quotes here, because that would be a sign of trying to control things. Which brings me to point number 3. My true assignment is what God asked me to carry. So that kind of takes all the doubt out of it, right? Instead of carrying everything, we can ask a better question. God, what did you actually assign to me? What am I supposed to carry? Jesus describes the right kind of burden. In Matthew 11:28-30, Jesus says, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So think about this for a minute. If something feels really just like crushing and overwhelming and never ending, it might just be because we picked up that burden and God did not assign it to us. What God actually asks us to carry is faith, obedience, love, prayer, wisdom, our own personal growth. But what about the outcomes, you might ask? Well, guess what? Those belong to God. When we experienced Hurricane Michael in October 2018, it was definitely one of the most horrific and tragic things I had ever been through, that my family had ever been through. We thought everything was okay, and then we discovered that basically we were homeless. We didn't have a house to stay in. We were renting a place, and it got messed up in the hurricane, and we had to move out. We didn't have a place to stay. We stayed in a friend's house for a little while. But those 2 months, looking back, it was very traumatic, and I'm still kind of traumatized by it sometimes when I think about it. In fact, my thought process on everything is, oh, was this before the hurricane or after the hurricane? That's kind of like how I differentiate time. But it also was a time where it was just kind of like that helplessness. It wasn't really hopelessness, but it was like a helplessness. You couldn't do anything about it. There was nothing I could do to control the situation. There was nothing I could do to make it better. I couldn't really make it better for my kids. I tried the best I could. We were staying in a friend's condo, and we had three of us were staying there. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo. And then when my other son was home for the Christmas, then we had 4 of us staying there. And the kids were upset. They didn't know if they were still going to have class or school. Were they going to be able to graduate? My daughter was graduating that following May. Were they even going to be able to graduate? Like, the entire town was just torn to shreds. There were no stoplights. There were no, if you drove around town, you couldn't even realize where you were. It was just like, it was in total upheaval. But it was also a time to realize you have no control over that. There's nothing you can do. And it was very similar to when COVID hit and everybody was on lockdown. There was nothing you could do about it. You couldn't change it. You couldn't run in there and, say, well, I'm not going to be locked down, because everything was locked down and certain things were open and certain things were not. And you couldn't control that either. So it was, whenever you go through something really traumatic, you also have that opportunity to really just turn it all over to God. And that's when you have those heaviest burdens, those burdens that you just can't hardly carry yourself. Those are the ones where God will take that. Jesus says that my yoke is light. I'll take that burden for you. The good thing is that God calls us to be faithful. He does not call us to be in control. So my taken back happy friends, maybe the question isn't as complicated as I was making it. Maybe it's just simply what is actually mine to carry and what isn't. Because so many of us are walking through life weighed down by backpacks that have other people's names on them. They have their choices, their growth, their healing, their consequences, and we carry them because we love them. I mean, we want to even. But love doesn't mean taking responsibility for someone else's life. God never asked us to carry the whole world. He asked us to carry our faith, our own faith. He asked us to carry love. He asked us to carry obedience. But the outcomes, those totally belong to Him. And here's the freeing truth. When you put down what isn't yours, you finally have the strength to carry what is. You have the energy to live your life, to grow, to love well, to follow where God is leading you. So if today you realize you've been carrying something that was never yours to begin with, don't beat yourself up. You don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to put yourself down. You can simply just set it down. Just like that backpack, just like that suitcase, you're just going to set it down. Give it back to the person it belongs to and ultimately place it in God's hands. My friend, when you stop carrying what was never yours, you make room to carry the happy that God actually has for you. If this podcast blessed and encouraged you today, I'd love for you to share it with your friends. You can take a screenshot and share it in your stories, but make sure you tag me at Gina Granville so we can connect. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you join my Taking Back Happy Facebook group. I'll meet you back here soon, and we'll continue taking back happy together.